When we sit down, it's time for the conversation, and joining me today, an able panel of ladies who will be able to break down the impact of COVID-19 on your socioeconomic life. Our first guest is Susan Wanjiko. She is an economist and a financial advisor. She is also the founder and CEO of The Hub Kenya. Previously, she's served as fund operations assistant at Citon Investment. She's also been a business administrative assistant. She holds a degree in Bachelor of Economics and Finance from Kenyatta University, and she's been a finance and administrative intern at ISIPE. Our second guest of the day is Anne Wamboi Gaitha. Anne Gaitha has over 20 years professional experience with 15 years cumulative experience in the financial service industry, and has worked for licensed fund managers and a transaction advisory firm in Nairobi. She also has international experience, having consulted for various businesses in California, China, and working for Bank of America in California, USA for 7 years. Anne is currently the founder and CEO of Regal Africa Group, which is a diversified financial service company based in Nairobi, Kenya. Anne holds a Bachelor of Science degree in finance, real estate, and law, and also a minor in international business from California State University, Long Beach, and she also holds an MBA in finance from Halt International Business School in San Francisco. Ladies, thank you for making time. Great. Now, let's begin with you, Susan. COVID-19 was first reported in the country in March. So far, how would you say COVID-19 has been a driving force in the disruption of the socioeconomic life of Kenyans?
I think this was unexpected, first of all, and just like any other unexpected occurrences in the world, we are never as prepared. So I think with regard to the social economic status of our country and even in the world as in general, people first of all had to take some time to adjust themselves and to understand what was happening. And before people understood what was happening, the economy was already taking such a hard hit, because now people have to stay at home in order to quarantine, businesses have to close, and GDP composes of, income from the majority of citizens in any country. So of course that really hit many countries, and Kenya as a whole has also been hit with regard to, businesses being affected, people's work being affected, people losing their jobs, taking pay cuts. For lack of a better word, I would say it's generally just put us in a recession.
Mm-hmm. And I want to find out from you, what would you say has been the extent of this disruption so far?
The extent is really, it has affected everybody, as Susan mentioned. Mostly negative, but for some people, this has been a great opportunity. People saw the crisis, and especially people who are very entrepreneurial and have a global mindset, they have actually taken advantage of this opportunity to actually scale up. So a lot of people have seen their businesses, either they've closed them or they have pivoted to new businesses. But some people have actually taken advantage, especially around technology, to really expand. But I do have to say that this COVID pandemic was really unexpected for everybody. But I believe that this is a moment where people who have actually been listening, looking at the future trend, are going to take advantage of the opportunities that will come in the new normal.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the new normal has come a new reality, and a research done by Stanchart indicates that at least 65% of Kenyans have been forced to take pay cuts, and they are really uncertain about what their future is and their financial viability. And I want to find out from you, what does this mean at probably household level?
I believe on a household level, this is when a lot of people are starting to believe or understand the importance of personal finance and financial management, because this has become a point where a lot of people have realized, look, I either lose my job or I take a pay cut, right? And the pay cut is not because I'm not performing, it's because business have to survive, right? And so people are willing to negotiate their salaries and say, you know what, I'll take a pay cut, and then now I can be able to continue working in this business. Which means for them to take a pay cut, they have to actually look at their expenses. They have to look at things that they don't really need, non-essentials, and say, you know what, I don't really need to do this, so I can do away with it. What I need to focus on is managing my budget, my cash flow of my personal finance, and making sure that I am spending only what I can afford. The other thing that I've seen happening, because at Regal Africa, we've been doing research, I've actually seen people are starting to save more because people are not spending discretionary, right? People are not socializing, people are not going to get their hair done or getting, nails done or things that they usually used to do, maybe coffee dates and all that. So now people are taking that money and now putting it in a savings account to ensure that they are prepared for eventuality if their business goes down or they are laid off by the employer. So it has been very transformational for individuals in regards to how they look at money and what they do with the money that they make.
Susan, I also know you're in the personal finance space. I'd like you to pick up on that point. And while at it, you can also talk to us about the impact of such numbers on a national economy.
All right. I agree with what Anne has said. Definitely on a personal level, this has come with a paradigm shift for many people. But on the flip side of it, it has also come, there are people who still haven't experienced that paradigm shift because seeing as most people were not prepared for this emergency, I can tell you this for a fact that majority of Kenyans are one emergency away from a financial crisis because we hadn't normalized having emergency funds. And because I do personal finance coaching, and one of the things that I've noticed with almost 80% of my clients, when we first have our budgeting class, the first question I ask is, do you have an emergency fund? And most people think that an emergency fund is money that you put aside for small emergencies during the month. But in reality, an emergency fund is an account where you have saved up to a minimum of 6 months of your total living expenses, because this now means that if in case anything was to happen to your job, or your ability to make an income, you are able to have a buffer, a cushion for around 6 months to even 1 year so that you can be able to organize yourself. Now, taking example how COVID came in around March, by the time we started experiencing lockdowns and all that, you find that if people had savings, some had savings only that could take them either 2 months or even none. And so when this thing extends all the way to 5 months to 6 months, now we having a financial crisis in the country as a whole. And so this is also an awakening call, I would say, as Anne has said. Much as we are required to level up, I think there is a place for people understanding the importance of knowing some of these things in personal finance. Like an emergency fund is non-negotiable. All right. And going forward, what I would want to see generally is more Kenyans being encouraged to save up more. I love what Anne has also said, spending on essentials only, right? And so even on a national level, I feel like our government should also really focus towards efforts that kind of tend to, bring up the common mwananchi per se, right? And to also try and maybe put in some policies that would allow the common mwananchi to survive this crisis, whether it is, tax reliefs, which we have seen in some transactions, right? But I feel that this is definitely going to be something that will take some time to recover from. And therefore, as individuals and even as a country, I feel that we still need to brace for tougher times ahead. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Susan, what does this type of cash crunch mean for the national economy and even the national budget?
It definitely affects everything, right? Because first of all, if Kenyans are not making money, then there is going to be little revenue or less revenue than what is expected. So we are probably looking at maybe more debt at a national level, right? Because we have to meet the deficit. There is no question that there's going to be a deficit in revenue. And therefore, in order for us to be able to recover, in order for things to continue moving, there is definitely going to be debt. And as a result of debt, once we are recovering, Kenyans are definitely going to be paying more taxes, right? And when you think of it holistically like that, even as an individual in Kenya, you want to start thinking about, so how am I preparing myself to deal with what is coming? Because it is coming and it cannot be avoided.
Anne, would you like to pick up that point?
Yes, what I would like to add on top of what Susan has said is, this is greatly going to affect us on a personal level, but also on a government level, because again, we are encouraging people to only spend on essentials, which which means a lot of businesses are going to go out of business. If they go out of business, they lay people off. If they lay people off, people are not spending. Government is not making money. So again, you have this vicious cycle of actually getting to a point where the economy will contract. So what do we have to do? And I think that's where government needs to come in with the policies in regarding to encourage spending, but you can't encourage spending when there is no demand of goods, or when people are afraid that, you know what, I can't afford, or my job will be lost. So people are very cautious. And I think we brace ourselves for tough times, but I always say there's opportunity. People are making money right now. People are making money. So it's about looking at those opportunities that you can look at to make money even outside the country.
I want to stay with you, and despite all the challenges that we are seeing currently, bills have to be paid. Many people in Nairobi live in rental homes. You have to pay your bills. You have utilities to take care of. How would you say Kenyans are currently coping?
It's tough times, but those people who have thought it through are coping well. Why? Because, for example, if you're having issues with rent, right, which everybody understands, this is something that people didn't anticipate. Are you going to your landlord and actually talking to them and saying, look, I've been affected. It's not that I don't want to pay rent, but can we have a discussion around that? I think any reasonable person will be able to look into that. It's also going to your bank and say, look, I cannot afford to pay my loan because of the pandemic. Again, we're seeing a lot of loan restructuring happening. So people who are in a position where they can say, look, this has affected all of us and we didn't see it coming, but there are things that I can do to make sure that I am able to survive through this pandemic and eventually thrive in, I always say, the new normal that is coming up.
Susan, I know you're young personally, and I want to believe you work with young people. I want to find out from you, amid this pandemic, what are some of the opportunities that young people out there can pursue and leverage on, even as the world seems to be falling apart in every single direction?
I hear you. So one of the things that I have loved to see, I have personally been doing and I have seen young people doing, I'm seeing a lot of unlearning and relearning. Okay, so there's what we were taught in school, right? Study hard, you know, get the good grade and get a job. Now, what happens when one, you don't get a job, and two, now even if you had a job, you either have to take a pay cut or you have been laid off. Now, unlearning the things we used to know, because I keep telling people that how we used to make money before has changed. It is almost not relevant right now. And so we need to remodel our expectations and to remodel some of the things that we are doing as young people and even as a country as a whole. So one thing I've seen is a lot of people are starting to embrace demand-driven skills. We are currently in the fourth industrial revolution. So digitize everything because everything is going digital. Okay, so there's a lot of opportunity on digital. I, as a personal finance coach, I do not hold any of my coaching classes physically. I do them online, and that is a whole business in itself. I've seen a lot of people embracing having online thrift shops, because I know some stores were closed. So I'm seeing a lot of people, young people moving online, moving their goods online, having an online shop, understanding using social media for business, because one thing I can tell you is that social media is a powerful business tool if you know how to use it and you leverage on it. So I'm also seeing a lot of people trying to also, you know, learn something new. I keep saying that whatever you went to campus to learn was just how to learn new things. And so I love that I'm seeing a lot of people also, you know, learning new things, trying, even if you don't have a background for it, there's always an opportunity to learn. So one of the things that I think I've really identified with a lot of the young people that I'm working towards, they have awakened to the reality that we are in right now, and they are learning the opportunity. So there's a lot of opportunities in digital, and even you know, additional streams of income. So using your gifts and your talents and the things that you know you do naturally, and then now starting to learn how to monetize some of those things.
That is at a personal level, and I want to find out from you, from organization and company level, what do some of these organizations need to do to brace for any eventualities that might come in the future, learning from COVID-19?
I think, sorry?
Go ahead, Anne.
Okay. All right. So for me, from a company's perspective, whether you're an SME, whether you're corporate, I keep talking about digital transformation. digital transformation is key. Technology is what's going to differentiate one company or one business from the other, because it is very critical. And not only just in operations, it's in marketing, it's in human resource management, it's in everything. It's in all the processes that need to be done. Again, making sure that you're using technology is going to be very critical, because as people are seeing, even with this pandemic, people never realized that people could work from home, but it's actually happening. So you're going to see, or I've been talking to a lot of businesses who are my clients around, how do you outsource your non-core services, right? Things like accounting, things like human resource advisory, things like legal advisory. You don't need somebody at the office. You can actually outsource that service. So again, you're going to see a lot of businesses reaching to a point because they're thinking about cost. They're really thinking about, how do I mitigate my fixed cost? How do I do things a little bit differently? And mostly fixed costs are like, your rent, your human resource, and different expenses like that. So again, business are going to be looking at, how do I use technology, but also how do I outsource some of these services that I don't really, that are not my core business, to make sure that I am surviving and eventually thriving in my business. So I think that is what you're going to see a lot of businesses do, is really look at their finances, their financial statements, and understand, how do I increase my revenue? How do I manage my expenses or reduce my expenses? That's what a lot of businesses are doing.
And I want to stay with you. That is at organization level. How about national level? What sort of government interventions do we need to see? For example, I know in the UK, for a period of time, the government subsidized eating out so that restaurants could resume operation because people like good deals. However, in this country, what sort of interventions do we need?
We need a lot of interventions, but I think also sometimes the government has a hard time doing it because of the way we are structured. In Kenya, we are an informal economy. So even when government tries to come up with some of these interventions, it's really hard for them to be able to actualize them, because again, they don't have data about what's going on in the informal economy. I think what government needs to do going forward is to actually encourage people to formalize their business, because once they formalize their business, there could be policies in place that will actually help these businesses actually scale up. One of the things I've been saying is, it's very hard doing business in Kenya. Very hard, especially if you're a formal business, right? There are no tax incentives. There are no policies in place that actually build capacity of these SMEs. A lot of SMEs close down because of cash flow problems because they're not being paid by government itself, right? So they're closing shop. They're not being paid by other companies. They're not being paid by employees. So again, government needs to put things, especially around payment, policies around payments, to help them, to make sure that these SMEs are surviving. Because what I've been saying government needs to look at is not focusing on the informal, as which I think is what has been happening, but really focusing on formal SMEs. That to me is really the critical space, and that is what going to answer in regards to job unemployment being solved. Let me just give you an example. I always say, if, for example, if the government of Kenya today actually took 3 million SMEs and actually supported them to scale up, and each of these SMEs just hire a minimum of 10 employees. Do you know that is 30 million people being employed by 3 million? We solve unemployment. But if you continue just only supporting informal economy where people are only hiring themselves, we'll constantly have this unemployment issue. So for me, from a national level and a policy level, is actually supporting SMEs to make sure that they formalize, they're able to scale up, and make sure that they're getting paid so that they stay in business.
Susan, I want to come to you. And the reality is that people are living in a very uncertain time. They do not know what their fate is. And I want us to talk to some of those people very directly. There are those who've taken pay cuts. 25%, 30, 50, KQ people have taken 70% pay cuts. How do you readjust your finances and your life around such drastic and unexpected cuts?
Okay, the first thing I would say is that I think one of the things that people need to have as a constant mindset is that it will get better, because then again, when you are operating from a point of fear and hopelessness, there's really not much creativity that you can come up with to solve your problem. So I think mindset is very important. The war starts here, and you win it here first before you do anything else. So I think positivity is all. People think it's a cliche thing to say that we need to be positive and we need to know that things are getting better, but they will get better. That's the reality. Now, when it comes to readjusting your finances, one of the things that I keep saying time and time again, whenever there are changes in your income, it is non-negotiable for you to scale down. So if you need to move to a different house, move to a different house. If you need to structure how your household utilizes stuff, like I love what Anne has said, spending on non-essentials needs to be something that we are no longer doing. Okay, so because let me tell you one thing, majority of Kenyans are actually living above their paycheck, right? You're living above your means. And so because we live also in a culture where we want to keep up with the Jonases, you want to live in a certain area because this is what you want your friends to see. But the reality is people's opinions don't pay your bills. So you need to focus on what your bills can manage. So if you need to move to, I think, readjusting the bills that you have to pay. Also, another thing, when it comes to children, I think most parents need to sit down with their children and kind of tend to explain to them, because we don't explain to them what is happening. And so if they used to have pizza every Sunday, they're still expecting that mommy is going to provide pizza every Sunday. So you need to sit down with your kids and try explain to them, we need to, when you go to the bathroom, ensure that you put the taps off, switch off the lights if you're not using them, so that you're trying to minimize the cost and to cut costs as much as possible. Now, another thing that we need to also do is think about additional streams of income. A salary income is never going to be enough to achieve financial freedom, ever, not for anyone. And so when it comes to thinking of additional streams of income, some businesses have been known to have started in a time of recession and they have prospered. Okay, so this is around the time where people need to start looking at the skills that they have, the expertise that they need, and to start investing in learning how to monetize some of those things. Now, most people will say that, right now I don't have time to invest in education or in learning a new skill. We have millions of online free online resources to learn. You can learn editing, you can learn photography, you can learn cooking, you can learn how to use social media for business purposes. So I think it's all about resourcefulness. That's what I would say. But further to so those three things, we need to change our mindset, we need to cut costs as much as possible, we need to communicate. And another thing I love that Anne also highlighted is this: communicate to our creditors. Kenyans are known to avoid calls. Like when you owe people, you don't want to pick calls. You don't want to, you don't want to go communicate to your mortgage company or your creditor that you are unable to meet the obligations. One thing I know is that there is always room to negotiate when you can come to the table and say, I'm not able to meet this bill right now. Can you adjust it for me? So it is acceptance. And once you accept, then, structure your lifestyle and your finances and your financial obligations to suit what you're earning right now. Then, open up your mind and think out of the box and start looking at opportunities at how you can make additional income.
As we come to a close of the conversation, Anne, for that person who's lost their job, maybe they lost their job a year ago, they've lost their job 6 months ago, 3 months ago, or they're on the verge of losing their job because the company is laying off, what's the next step for them, very briefly?
All right. For everybody out there, I keep saying the next step is actually sit down, really look at your whole financial picture. Understand where are you right now and where you want to go. Just to tell you something small, one of the things we did at Regal Africa, we came up with what we call the Wealth Book. It's an e-workbook where anyone can actually get it online from anywhere in the world, and they can just actually go to, to our social media and download that e-workbook. What does that do? You actually have to sit down, understand what is your current financial net worth. You actually have to put down your budget. You then have to start looking at things like debt management. There's an 8-step process that we go through in that e-workbook that everyone needs to do, because everyone has to understand we're going through trying times, but things are going to get better eventually. So you actually, and I liked what Susan said, you actually have to have a positive wealthy mindset because you know things will get better. So right now, understand where you are, where you want to go, and take those right steps that you need. And there's help out there. So there are wealth advisors, wealth coaches out there who can actually help you make sure that you're taking the right steps to eventually be successful and to become wealthy, because I believe that's what everyone needs to do. So for me, again, it's really understanding your financial picture holistically and making the right decisions based on where you are right now and where you want to go.
30 seconds. I want you to talk to that Kenyan. Where do we go from here? Where do they go from here amid all this uncertainty? And probably share how we can find you if anybody would like to pick up this conversation with you.
So where do we go from here? I think I will also resonate with, I resonate with what Anne has said. It is important that we have an abundant mindset, very key. And then now we need to also know that there are resources outside here. I am a personal finance coach. I help people to know how to best manage their money, how to budget for their money, how to understand investment, how to work on their mindset and their goals, how to think big, but to start small and start now. So that is what we need to do. To think big, yes, we know there are things we need to do to get out of this, but we need to start small and to start now. My name is Susan. You can find me on my Instagram, Susan Wanjiko, on my website at the Legacy Hub KE, and also on Facebook as Susan Wanjiko. Thank you so much.
And how can we find you?
All right, you can find me on social media. I'm Anne Wambui Gaitha, but you can find me again, like I said, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Anne Gaitha, ANNEGAITHA, or you can actually go to our website, which is Regal Africa, www.regalafrica.co.ke. Reach out to us and we'll be glad to help you on your wealth journey.
Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've shared rare gems that we'll hold on to and we'll try to put into practice as we try to navigate these uncertain financial times. Thank you very much. As our guests have said, it will get worse before it gets better, but eventually it will get better. After this, we come back with Social Watch, where my mic is off and your voice comes on. See you shortly.